You guys know how nowadays popular characters get ripped to shreds just for being popular? It feels like I can't see a single video about a popular character without going in the comments and seeing someone post paragraphs of how bad the character is. And its fans, which they usually correlate directly with the character, but that's not the point. More obscure characters seem to be put up on high pedestals, even if in turn that character joins the list of bad popular characters. Popular is bad, is what I'm saying. Obscure or even unheard of is good, as long as you don't hear about it. Now, can you imagine having these same conversations about Five Nights at Freddy's? I'm sure you have those unbearable people somewhere in the ether, but for the most part, this effect seems to have been reversed throughout Five Nights at Freddy's lifetime. And if you're wondering, I've been into these games since before the second game came out. So, somewhere during the 3 months after the first game. Obviously, Five Nights at Freddy's 1 had the fan favorites, mostly being Foxy and Golden Freddy. Since the cast was so small at the time, you couldn't really have any obscure or niche characters to like. Every character got equal amounts of love, both from the fandom and Scott himself. Unless you were Freddy, or maybe that was just me. But then, 3 months later, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 came out and expanded the roster. Both sides had their favorites, and we even see them today. The Wizards have Foxy and Bonnie, while the toys have Chica and Mangle. In fact, it feels like the marionette only got more popular in recent times, or maybe I just didn't have as much puppet content shoved down my throat. Every character was suddenly getting fan art, fan songs, source film- who the fuck are you? Every character was suddenly getting fan art, fan songs, source filmmaker animations about them kissing, 2D animations about them kissing. However, as time progressed, I suddenly had an insatiable hunger for content of one particular character. Which is what I want to yap about today. Toy Bonnie, my baby boy, my baby girl even. I don't know what got me so attached to Toy Bonnie when I was younger, especially because when the game first came out, he was arguably my least favorite. I didn't like how different he was to the original Bonnie, and I ignored him in anything he was in. But it was denial the whole time because I snapped one day. But even then, what about Toy Bonnie specifically? The toys all had their own gimmicks to them, but Toy Bonnie really only has one frame where his eyes shrink, and that's kind of it. Besides that, and maybe I just really liked his design, something about this guy had me hooked. As a 6-year-old with access to an iPad and YouTube, I went on the hunt for Toy Bonnie content, only to discover that nobody fucking liked him. Sure, he made big cameos and things like 5 AM at Freddy's, but I was talking about more than just tiny cameos. I wanted to see a Toy Bonnie fan song, like how Bonnie got his own song 50 times. However, my search only led me to Withered Bonnie, and thus begins my first complaint. During the weird times of 2014, 2015, when did Five Nights at Freddy's 2 come out? Toy Bonnie's only real fandom presence was joined at the hip with Withered Bonnie. It didn't feel like he had his own identity. Since Withered Bonnie was scrapped to make him, they obviously had to be inseparable, and I constantly had to watch him get his shit rocked by Withered Bonnie too. The Bonnie song? About Bonnie? He's brought up for 2 bridges, and the most of that song is about how he was scrapped for Toy Bonnie. So like, what am I supposed to do? The biggest plethora of content I could get my hands on was fan art, but it fell hard to even get solo pieces of him because guess who he was always paired with? And if not Withered Bonnie, it was usually one of the other toy animatronics. I'm now realizing how often Toy Bonnie was shipped with other people, but every character was getting super big projects done with them. Full animations, more songs, even comic artists picked them up. I was sitting there watching comic dubs, waiting for my boy to appear, but some loser named Vincent kept popping up for some reason. But it's fine, that's fine. If the fandom won't give me the content my elementary school Kool-Aid filled heart desired, Scott himself would come down one day and bless me with more content. Oh my god, he's dead! I was possibly more devastated than I'd ever been in my entire life, which now leads me to talk about why I named this video the way I did. What do I mean when I say Toy Bonnie is the most neglected FNaF character? This is where it starts. This single box in Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is his only relevant appearance for years during the games. You may be asking, what about Shadow Bonnie? Well, yeah, if I'm absolutely desperate, I can cling to Shadow Bonnie like my life depends on it. He's basically Toy Bonnie, come on guys! It's the same model! I don't care if he has more lore relevance than Toy Bonnie ever could. Unfortunately for me, Shadow Bonnie got swept up into his own Hall of Fame during the third game, basically becoming another character altogether. The only resemblance he has to Toy Bonnie is how he looks, but you never get Toy Bonnie content. You get Shadow Bonnie content. My son is still dead in that box! The next appearance he really gets is in FNaF World as a starter character that you're most likely gonna throw out anyway. And I couldn't bear looking at him because, respectfully, look what they did. Look what they did to my boy! He doesn't even have good attacks either. Even worse, when by default in FNaF World, if you don't switch your teams, these guys get leveled up way more. How can I call this content when all I got was 2 new animations and this single frame of his face? But it's okay. Like I keep saying, it's okay. Scott will come down one day to save me. And I thought he did. Fast forward to 2016 and we get this teaser on Scott's website. With the foresight of 10 years, we know that this is Circus Baby, but at the time people were saying, hey, this looks like Toy Bonnie, right? I thought he looked kind of funny, but I figured when the game came out and we all saw his full model, he would be absolutely stunning. You know, with how much Scott is about to reuse Toy Bonnie's physical characteristics, I think he might be his favorite Bonnie design. So where's my content of him? By now, Five Nights at Freddy's merch was being made, and if anything was Toy Bonnie related, I had it. I had the ugly limited edition plush, I had that one Toy Bonnie squishy with the giant forehead, and a girl I was friends with took it from my jacket one day when I was at recess and ripped it up before handing it back to me. We were no longer friends, so I took my love into my own hands. When I was in 3rd grade, my school did this thing called Reflections, which was a competition where they gave you an uplifting, motivational prompt, and you had to make something related to it. And I completely ignored that part. I bought myself some clay and I made a tiny Toy Bonnie figure that I turned in and found partially broken on its display. And I also remembered being very adamant to my mom that Toy Bonnie was a girl, because I had no idea that a man could slay this hard back then. I also went as Toy Bonnie for Halloween, which just consisted of my grandma putting me in a blue onesie and sewing white fabric onto the stomach, giving me a really bad bow tie from Walmart, and the rest was face paint. I was so starved for content, I took matters into my own hands and made my very first original character, Toy Bonnie, but in Undertale. You could even say Toy Bonnie for Undertale. Oh my god. At this point, I had accepted my fate. Nobody had made any more content for Toy Bonnie, and whenever they did, I clung to it like I needed it to survive. And also may or may not have discovered Wooden Toaster because of this prototype VIP animation I adored for months on end, and I still do low-key. 2017 rolled around, about to be 2018, and Pizzeria Simulator rolled around. So I gave up. After Pizzeria Simulator, I started drifting away from Five Nights at Freddy's as other indie games caught my attention, and I've also never touched a Five Nights at Freddy's book in my life. I wrote this a few months ago and my friends bought me one, but from what I've heard, it wouldn't have been worth my time anyway, especially because there's no Toy Bonnie. Update: after reading one of the graphic novels, what the fuck do you mean that Funtime Foxy is basically just Mangle? What is happening? One day, I saw a very specific video in my feed. Ultimate Custom Night voice lines. What's this? They all have voices now?! I ran to my brother's room and put the video on for both of us to watch, and when the toys popped up, I waited eagerly in anticipation, and nothing. He didn't get a voice. So you're telling me Toy Freddy can get voice lines, but not my baby boy? Toy Freddy. The guy Smike made an entire video on that was calling him fat for 10 minutes. His jump scare wasn't that great either, which made me really sad because I love the animation of him entering the office. I still do. Look at him. And unlike everyone else, I did see a bit more personality in Toy Bonnie. Sure, he didn't get a voice to go with it, but this single animation taught me something. On the cameras, he seems completely normal, just like the others, but the closer he gets to you, his eyes get smaller. He gets more twitchy. I don't know if manic is the right word, but that's the closest I can get to explaining it. I took that small bit of information and ran 20 miles with it, and from then on, I moved on to greater things. greener pastures. Even when Help Wanted came out, I knew I would be disappointed. I still watched and played it. This is still Five Nights at Freddy's, but my boy could only stand in front of me and let me admire him now. So I wasn't exactly disappointed. Fast forward to whenever this is, and I'm scrolling YouTube one day. I noticed a video in my feed from Daco, which was funny because as a kid I hated Daco. Probably because he's British, but this time, the video caught my attention. Toy Bonnie was in Five Nights at Freddy's AR. FNaF AR. The animatronics all have voices in this game. So I clicked the video, skipped the intro, and went straight to the gameplay, and was met with...
This is my chance to shine, and your chance to fade away.
Let's fucking go! Finally, after all these years, some good fucking food! I immediately listened to all his voice lines, watched his animations, and unlike the majority of the fan base, I was in love. This was my boy, my egotistical boy, my boy who can't count. He was so silly, and I finally had something to work with. I even begged my brother to let me download FNaF AR on his iPad since I didn't have an iOS, I had an Android, and I sat there doing everything in my power to get Toy Bonnie. It was amazing. Unfortunately, I don't remember anything about the experience other than spinning around in my chair, especially when I saw him, but that's enough for me. I have what I always wanted. Content. I told you, Scott would push through for me one day. Okay, I don't know if this was Scott's decision, but my point still stands. And when the majority of the crowd wasn't satisfied, at least Toy Bonnie's #1 fan finally was. So fast forward to 2025. I haven't been keeping up with Five Nights at Freddy's in terms of books or games. I might pull one of the old games up on occasion, but the only media I ever really interacted with was the movie, which I loved because I have joy and whimsy in my life. Life is going pretty good. I'm getting ready to graduate. I'm getting an early taste of the animation student life. Like I said, pretty good. You know, nothing could possibly make this any better than it is right now.
I, Mr. MatPat himself, am getting to be the voice of Toy Bonnie.
MatPat! Suddenly, my dormant Five Nights at Freddy's passion has been reignited. MatPat! As my son? I'm gonna be honest, when I first heard this, I was a little skeptical. Toy Bonnie already has a voice. MatPat does not sound like that. This was life or death for me. They're giving me some of the biggest content of Toy Bonnie I'll ever have for probably ever, and gave him over to the game theorist, who was supposed to be retired, by the way. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was worried, and then I saw this video of his suit, and oh my god, he's beautiful! I love you! Daco, what the fuck? This video alone did something the first movie never could have done. My childhood phase came back. You guys know how I was Toy Bonnie for Halloween? Well, I showed my grandma a little video by Andy Matronic called Making the Toy Animatronics because I wanted to be Toy Bonnie. I needed to be, but as we all know, that didn't come to fruition because it was too complicated. But seeing this video made me realize something. I still remember that video. I still want a Toy Bonnie suit, and I'm turning 18 years old. Is the video up? It's still up. Oh my god. I have to. I have to. In the name of Matthew Pat! So, one caffeine-induced decision and a trip to Home Depot later, I am sitting on my floor, making a frame for my head, and suddenly buying hundreds of dollars worth of foam and hot glue. I'm making a big project for Five Nights at Freddy's. I haven't done this in years. My amalgamation OC, dead. Has been for years. All my FNaF merchandise was donated, which is a shame because I could make like bank off that right now. I haven't touched a FNaF video in years either, even when the first movie came out. And yet, here I am, finally living my childhood dream because after all this time, I was still Toy Bonnie's #1 fan. I'm still working on the suit right now, actually, so here's how it looks so far. I plan to wear him to a super big Comic-Con this year. It's gonna be very silly. So, you may be thinking, how is the movie? This movie has taken over my entire life. MatPat fucking killed it! All of you who are complaining about how he sounds are objectively wrong. He sounded so good. I was actually shocked. Toy Bonnie has canonically told a little girl that her parents fucking hate her. This is the peak of my career. No, I don't care that he only got a handful of lines. Seeing him on screen was so cool. Oh my god, look at him. Also, the movie itself is peak. I do not care if you don't like it. You cannot change my mind. This movie has thrown me back into my Five Nights at Freddy's phase. And it's been so fun to get back into. Up until now, I've only ever been Five Nights at Freddy's 3. But just the other day as I'm writing this, so this would have been like 3 months ago, I finally beat Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So after 11, about to be 12 years, I have enough Toy Bonnie content to satiate me. In fact, I have fandom content now. My friend sent me an edit of Toy Bonnie the other day, and I stared at my phone. He has other fans now. When did this happen? Where have you guys been? It's genuinely so weird to see content solely based on Toy Bonnie and no other animatronic. My boy finally reached Stardom, and I don't know how to feel. At least I have people I can finally gush over this character with. And hopefully that included you, because we're at the end of the video. Thank you if you listen to me ramble for however long this video ends up being. 20 minutes. This has only been 5 pages, but I've been writing for what feels like hours. Hopefully you guys can appreciate this silly little guy just as much as I have throughout the years. He means a lot to me, and I appreciate that now I can talk about him without being entirely overlooked. So, yeah. My throat really hurts. I'm gonna go take a break. Goodbye.